We're going to look at the heart. Here's the sternum. Remember your xiphoid process from A&P1. The heart's going to lie in the thoracic cavity, but more importantly, it's in the pericardial cavity. And I want to draw here the heart so that you can see that 2/3 of the heart is going to lie to the left side of the sternum, while 1/3 of the heart is underneath the sternum. So those are about the percentages there. Okay, the apex of the heart, this would be a rib and this would be a rib. This is the 5th rib and this is the 6th rib. The apex of the heart is going to be located between the 5th and 6th rib. The heart is also in a space called the mediastinum, along with the mediastinum is going to have the heart, the esophagus, as the esophagus goes from the throat down to the stomach, the trachea, as the trachea goes from the throat down to the lungs, and it also has the thymus gland. Okay. The mediastinum is not considered an actual cavity, but we do want to look at the heart because it does have a cavity associated with it called the pericardial cavity. So let's look at the pericardial cavity or the pericardial sac. Here's the pericardial sac here. We saw these words last semester. In blue there you have the parietal pericardium. The parietal pericardium is going to line the pericardial cavity, the outside portion. Then we have the visceral pericardium, which I'm going to go ahead and draw in red again, just because that's the color of our heart and it actually touches the heart. So the visceral pericardium. The visceral pericardium would be right here. It's touching the outer layer of the heart. Okay, both the parietal pericardium and the visceral pericardium are parts of serous membranes. So what do serous membranes secrete? Serous membranes secrete serous fluid. So we're going to put brackets here and say serous membranes. Serous membranes are going to secrete serous fluid. So in between the parietal pericardium and the visceral pericardium, you have the pericardial sac, pericardial cavity, and that's going to have serous fluid in it. The purpose for serous fluid, no matter where serous fluid is, the purpose of serous fluid is to decrease friction on moving organs. Okay, so that's where the heart is located, in the thoracic cavity, in the pericardial cavity, also in the mediastinum. It is located posterior to the sternum. About 2/3 of it's to the left of the sternum, while 1/3 of it's to the underneath the sternum or covered by the sternum. The apex of the heart is located between the 5th and 6th rib. And this is why, if you've ever taken CPR, they'll tell you to go 2 fingertips up for the xiphoid process, go over to the left-hand side, and you'll actually be able to do chest compressions on the apex of the heart so that you're going to be pushing the blood up out of the heart. Okay, next we want to look at the heart wall itself. Let me get a little bit of room over here. Let me get a bigger eraser. We want to look at the heart wall itself. You've got 3 layers of the heart wall. Okay, so 3 layers of the heart wall. The outer layer is the epicardium. The epicardium is also known as the visceral pericardium. The middle layer is the myocardium. And if you know that myo means muscle, we're looking at the big muscle layer. What type of muscle is found in the heart? Cardiac muscle. And then there is the endocardium. And the endocardium is the inner layer. The blood that actually passes through the heart is going to touch the endocardium, or it will be in contact with the endocardium. So if we drew our heart here, let's draw a little structure here. It's kind of crooked, but we're going to draw, so here are 4 chambers. Okay, you can see that the right hand side over here is thinner wall of the ventricle. The left hand side is going to have a thicker wall of the ventricle. There's your interventricular septum here. Okay, grab another color here, and we're going to draw the endocardium. The endocardium is going to be this inside layer here. Remember, it is also going to line the valves. I'm just going to do the ventricles instead of then all the heart, but it would actually line the atria too. Okay, the myocardium, I'm going to kind of give it a browner color because that's what your cardiac muscle is going to be made out of. So here's your cardiac muscle. So the cardiac muscle is going to be making up the myocardium. Remember that it's going to be thinner on the right side because the right ventricle is only pumping the blood to the heart, to the lungs. While the left ventricle is pumping the blood to the rest of the body, to the systemic circuit. Okay, so then you have the red that's on the outside here. The red that is located right out here, that is the epicardium. And like I said, it's also known as the visceral pericardium. So those are the three layers of the heart wall. Okay, let's look at the characteristics of cardiac muscle cells. So I'm going to erase this part over here. The characteristic of cardiac muscle cells. Cardiac muscle cells are branched. They look like little Ys. So let's draw one here. So here's one cardiac muscle cell. It has a centrally located nucleus. So the cells are branched. Central nucleus. Okay, the reason that the cells are branched is so that they're able to tell other cells information. So this one cell is able to tell two cells. And of course, the information that usually is told by a muscle cell is it's time to contract. So you can see how important this would be if you know that your cardiac muscle cells all contract at the same time. Okay, so you can see that this would just continue to grow. So one cell would tell two cells would tell four cells would tell eight cells would tell 16 would tell 32 would tell 64, and 64 would tell 128, and so on and so on and so on. So those are that's the structure of your cardiac muscle cells. Another important kind of thing about it too, notice that I never made any of these cells touch each other. That's because you have gap junctions in between these cells, which means that any chemicals that are released into the cardiac muscle cells, those impulses are able to pass between the cells, and that's going to help with the communication also. Okay, so that's the structure of a cardiac muscle cell. That's the histology.